the context with which we talk about NVIDIA and some of the other key players is the limitations of selling into China. That was a key story for ASML, for example, going forward. Is that going to perpetuate itself?
Caroline, you're right. Context is really important here. And when you think about it, it's just reflective of the new paradigm that we're in which tech has to do very much with the future of American prosperity and American national security. So just as we have to scrutinize which countries we're sending F-35s to, we also have to scrutinize where we're sending our most advanced chips to, which also power our F-35s. And these aren't hair dryers that we're talking about. And why we have to look at this is ultimately it comes down to trust. Do we trust the companies? Do we trust the countries that we're going to be sending our NVIDIA chips and our most advanced critical technology to, with the understanding that it's not going to end up in the hands of some of our adversaries like Russia, like China, and the People's Liberation Army?
Do you have a clear sense of any benefit being derived from current and existing policy on semiconductors for the United States?
Look, we've taken measures over the course of a couple administrations now to make sure that we're preventing our most critical technology from going to our adversaries, and specifically China. But this is why tech diplomacy is also really important. When I was Assistant Secretary of State, I was traveling all across the world. And the number one thing that you hear from our allies and partners is that they want U.S. private sector investment. Well, it's really hard to do that when you have Chinese technology, untrusted technology, embedded into your government infrastructure and across your country. And so you want to make sure that you're using trusted technology. If you look at the U.S. and 12 of our closest democratic partners, we make up almost 2/3 of global GDP. China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela is less than 20% of GDP. So you want to be a part of the big network. There's a lot of financial opportunity, diplomatic opportunity in that. And so we've started to, through American policy, implement the right policies around semiconductors to make sure that we are helping the partners in that trusted network and not in the untrusted network.
Michelle, earlier this week, Bloomberg's editor-in-chief, John Micklethwait, spoke to former President Trump and very directly tried to get a sense of what his policy will be with regards to China. Let's listen to his comments.
Well, the reason they're doing it now is they're not going to do it afterwards, okay? It's, so they're doing it now. They want to do it China. Now, look, I had a very good relationship with President Xi, and a very good relationship with Putin, and a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un, who has a nuclear force that you won't even believe.
President Trump discussed his good relationship with Xi, but I think many agree that we didn't get an understanding of whether he would continue with the existing stance of sort of export control on leading-edge chip. What is your expectation if President Trump were to take office in November or in January of next year?
Well, remember, export controls on critical technology from China began under President Trump, and specifically with Huawei. This was with regards to 5G. Huawei ultimately lost $30 billion in annual revenue because the United States under President Trump worked with 60 countries and 200 telecommunications companies to only use trusted vendors in 5G, and that did not include Huawei. We've seen those export controls continue now under the Biden administration. It's been on chips lately, but I think you can start to see this is American foreign policy now. Not only that, the Congress is very bipartisan. Just a couple days ago, the China Select Committee called for putting more Chinese companies on the entity list. This is Huawei's network of clandestine companies, which American companies are sending semiconductor manufacturing equipment. So this is a very bipartisan thing, and we should expect it to continue.
And yet, Michelle, companies still want to access the Chinese consumer. Apple still wants to build its phones there, still wants to access the consumer there. NVIDIA still wants to sell its less sophisticated chips over to China too. What is a CEO to do? What is Jensen Huang or Tim Cook to do in that situation?
Well, it's really interesting, actually. It was a Bloomberg reporter just a couple of weeks ago had asked Jensen Huang his take on the China export controls, and he said he had to defer policymaking to the United States. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in, when it comes to American national security, that's not anything that any CEO of a critical tech company can defer. We all have to be in this together. And in what's ultimately a technology race, American CEOs and tech CEOs in particular need to make sure that we are advancing our tech competitiveness. At the same time, we're not giving that technology to our adversaries who are dedicated to our demise. So there's a very big leadership role for CEOs.